Hey geeks, welcome to another exciting episode of Rockin the Code World with dotNetDave. I'm David McCarter. I'm glad you're all here. I hope you had a great a week or two since our last show. Now, off the top of my head, I'm forgetting when it was, but I think it was a couple weeks ago. So I'm glad you're here. Unfortunately, I always usually talk about the weather for some reason, and it's still cold in San Diego. Can you stop? I'm tired of the cold. I never complain about San Diego weather, but over 2 months of cold is not what I pay all the money to live here for. So I'm over it. Also, our my guest last time was Clark Sell. I think it was last week. Clark and he's a guy who runs that conference. And after the show, I submitted papers to go. The way he talked about his conference during the episode, it made me feel like I really wanted to check it out. And so, I went to his site and signed up and submitted my papers for the conference coming up near summer this year. And I realized I've already submitted twice, so he's already rejected me twice. And I think maybe because of that, I had a dream last night that I got acceptance emails from him. That's how much I want to speak, everybody. I really want to get out there speaking again. So I got to get some conferences to pick me up. So here's crossing my fingers and everything. Also in the last week, I got a check from Equifax. I don't know if you guys remember here in America, a few years back, a lot of our information was stolen from Equifax, and Equifax is a credit company here, one of the largest credit companies here in San Diego. And so because they did somebody stole my information, I joined their class action lawsuit. And you want to guess how much I got? Here's the check right here. It's $22.82. That's all I got from them giving my information away. Yeah, okay, so much for that. Probably cost them more to send that check than it did the fine. And also, I was going to talk about this with Simon before the show, but we got off track. And in June I think it's June, right, Simon? We're going to do the Code Quality Conference. So hopefully we'll get to catch up about that. Yes, June, we're going to do that. So if you want to submit a paper for that, we'll be doing that soon. There's the website. And I want to get your papers as soon as possible because I want to make this another great big conference on CSharpCorner. It's my favorite thing to do all year besides this show. And because I think, code quality is super, super important these days and something I don't see enough, when I look at other people's projects and solutions and things. And so anyway, that's all I have to talk about. So today, my guest is Khalid from JetBrains, JetBrains, and I'm really glad he's back on the show. This is his second time. And, I'm glad he's back because I don't know what he's up to because he left Twitter. And so if you feel that way, then we're going to catch up with him today. And I've been really looking forward to this episode to check out and see what he's up to. And not only, with JetBrains, but also his blogging. I miss his tweets because, some of his tweets actually, the code he showed made it into my open source software, Spargin. And so I kind of miss those. So, as I was researching him this morning, I bookmarked his website so I can go check out his stuff since he's not on Twitter anymore. But maybe we can convince him to come back. I don't know. So this is show 74. So next week is 75. 75. Isn't that some kind of big anniversary, wedding anniversary? I don't know what that is. So I'm looking forward to the 75th show next week. And I think it's next week. Is it next week? Nope, it'll be in March. Sorry about that. The next show is in March. And so the beginning of March. And so that'll be show number 75. So I'm looking forward to that. I can't believe it's been this many shows already. Can you, Simon? It seems like we just started, kind of. But I don't know about you, but I don't know about you, Simon, but I've always enjoyed doing the show and talking to the amazing guests that we have, and it's something I look forward to on Saturdays. All right. So this week, because Khalid's on our show and he's from Telerik, we're giving away a .NET Ultimate at the end of the show. Sorry, I didn't know there were animations in here. So we're going to be giving away dot Ultimate, which is ReSharper, Rider, ReSharper, C++, .trace, .memory, .cover, and .peak. So stay till the end of the show. We're going to do it at the very end, and we'll give that away. And I think it's worth close to $200. It's an annual subscription, so I think it's worth close to $200 or something like that. We don't do giveaways too much anymore here, so this will be great for you guys to use some of the great software that Telerik puts out. I still haven't looked at Rider yet. I really want to, and I don't know why. But with every release of Visual Studio, I think about Rider more and more, especially the release this week. As soon as I installed it, I found issues, and so. Oh, JetBrains. Telerik? Oh man, sorry. See, I forget things a lot. JetBrains, Telerik. Why do I think about Telerik? I don't know. Sorry about that. I'll change it. Also, if you don't know, my latest book is out. My code performance book, and this is the proof copy. I ordered some real copies, but they're not here yet. And so I hope you go pick up a copy. I worked on it most of last year, and I refer to it. I refer to it a lot when I'm coding at my contract job because whenever I do things, like especially with collections and things like that, I want to make sure I'm using the right loop for that collection and everything. And I'll talk about that in a second too. So anyway, if I use my book, I think you'll get some use out of it too. And I learned a lot from this book, more than probably any other book I've written. Actually, this edition, I've learned a lot about performance in .NET. So I hope you'll pick it up. And also, I've been rolling those performance increases changes into my Spargin project, which now supports .NET 6 and .NET 7. I hope you go pick it up. I just did a new release at the beginning of this month. And there's some really cool speed improvements in there. And I'm going to be continuously working, this year to roll in other speed improvements that I learned from my book. So I hope you go check out my open source project. If you like it, please submit a pull request and add your own code to it. I don't get a lot of input for this, and I really wish I did. And because Spargin is just all the common code I've written in .NET since .NET 2. So it's just a way for me to do things we do over and over again, put it in one library and make it maybe a little faster and a little easier. So I hope you check it out. All right. And speaking of Spargin, my latest article on CSharpCorner is about the latest release. Every release, I write an article and put it on CSharpCorner about all the new great features that I think are great, at least in my open source project, which are also in NuGet packages. And so I hope you go check out the article to learn some of the new things I've added. I've added some things because of performance. I learned performance. I've actually added a few things based on some patterns I was seeing at my new contract job, and to make things easier, because we're going to use Spargin, and I'm going to roll in some things that I see them doing over and over again into Spargin so we can have it in one place. And so anyway, I hope you go check all of that. All right, with that, I want to bring on Khalid. He's been working with .NET ever since the beginning and has spent the better part of his career working with ASP.NET. Recently, he enjoyed helping others learn about .NET through blogging and Twitter. So welcome.
Hi, Dave. I just want to. I would say.
I said Telerik. I'm so sorry.
No. I love the folks at Telerik. Yeah, they're great. I talk to them all the time. So
yeah.
no
I'm
worries.
sorry.
I could be associated with worse companies, I guess, but I do work.
Yeah.
I just want to make clear, if my boss is watching, I still do work at JetBrains. So
yeah, I'm sorry, JetBrains. Don't get mad at me.
No, but yeah, I'm excited actually to bring hopefully folks stay till the end so they can have a chance to win that .Ultimate license, because you get ReSharper. So if you're a Visual Studio user, you can use ReSharper. But you're talking about Spargin and how you're really focusing on performance. There's a lot of cool profiling tools in there. So .trace, .memory. So catch those pesky memory leaks.
Yes.
And yeah, if
you need those.
Yeah, and if you've kind of heard a little bit about Rider, .Ultimate includes licenses for both, so you can kind of try out and see which one kind of you prefer. So yeah, but to your point, the 75th episode is technically known as it's actually different in a lot of countries. I'm looking here at a website. It's mostly known as the Diamond and Gold anniversary. So I kind of feel like I missed out. If I would have just showed up next week, I would assume you'd be giving.
You're on the wrong show.
Oh man. So yeah, and I see people are in chat. So hello everybody. Thank you for joining us today. So thank you so much.
Before I forget, because we were talking about being forgetful before the show. Everybody out there, make sure you make a comment with pounds C# JetBrains, and that's what we're going to be. That's how we're going to pick the winner at the very end of the show. There, Simon's got the his program. Hey Simon, have you fixed it picking you in CSharpCorner all the time? No, come on, Simon, you got a bug in your app, right? Because it picks CSharpCorner and him most of the time.
Well, I guess that's one way to get a bunch of licenses.
Well,
right?
He makes the most comments, right? And so,
So Dave, I want to ask you a question. I'm looking at Spargin.net. There's a lot of cool stuff in it. Like, what do you think? Like, if somebody had to like use your thing, like, what's the one thing that kind of sticks out as like, this is the diamond, in the crown jewel of Spargin? Like, what's the thing that you always go to?
Well, I forgot you asked me questions on my own show.
I'm sorry. I can be a passive guest if you'd like.
No, you were like one of the first ones that actually started asking, had a list of questions kind of to ask me, and it kind of threw me a little bit the last time you did it. But most of the code in Spargin is actually in the extension methods. Ever since .NET came out with extension methods, I've just been going hog wild with them, because it allows you to add features to types that are already in .NET or in somebody else's package, right? And so I work really hard on, finding those kind of things where it makes that easier, right? And the other thing that's in the core library is that, something I really worked hard on for the .NET 6 release was the validation methods. I changed it up from what it used to be, and now there's a class called Validator. And Validator allows you to validate all kinds of data coming into your methods, right? And then it will throw the appropriate exception if it doesn't meet those requirements, right? And that's something, number one, I don't see people doing hardly at all, right? Sorry to throw places I work at under the bus, but pretty much every place I work at, there's no data validation coming into their types, right? None, right? And I just don't understand. I don't know about you, but I just don't understand that, because I've said this till I'm blue in the face: bad data in, bad data out, right? You have to keep the bad data out. Otherwise, you will run into issues, right? Not only could you piss off your customers, but you can bring your entire app down when you do things like that, right? So if you look at Spargin, I have been changing things a little bit to make it Spargin's a little bit nicer when you do something bad, but still, if you look at most of the methods in Spargin, and I write about this all the time, that the first couple lines of code I should see in every method is a validation, right?
Mhm.
And this includes properties, everybody out there. And so I created a Fluent. That's one thing I did when I released the dotNet 6 version or the dotNet 7 version, I forget now. I changed it to Fluent validation so you can, chain them together. But you can validate numbers, strings, data, all kinds of, basically everything I validate, I end up putting into the validator, and try to make it as flexible as possible, but make it as easy as possible, right? Like one of the things I do now is I don't make you put in the parameter name, right? Spargin knows that, and you don't have to tell what parameter you're checking because Spargin already knows that, right? And
are you using that new feature in .NET where you can say like call member name? And yeah, that's a really cool feature.
Yeah.
There's a lot of niceties in .NET 7 in terms of like the language kind of improving. So I've had a lot of fun kind of using those, especially with like C#11 features. I'd be curious to ask people who are watching, like, what are some of your favorite C#11 features? I have one in mind, but like Dave, what are you finding in C#11 that's super exciting?
What came out in the last version that I really liked? There are a few things, but now let me think about that. There's what were the things I really liked in the new version? I'll forget. It'll come back to me. But yeah, I work really hard. Yeah, I mean I tell people Spargin's not rocket science. It's not going to save the world. It's just tries to make your programming life easier, right? And that's why I call those articles Programming Faster, with Spargin, because to me it does make your coding faster once you get used to the code that's in it, especially the extension stuff. And so that's what it's really all about. It's not rocket science. It doesn't do any crazy stuff with JSON or XML or it's just common code. It's just a common code library, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's what's really important about frameworks and libraries and things like that. They're like they're codifying conversations you might have between team members, right? Like instead of telling Joe and Janet and Jeffrey the same thing 3 different times, I've never worked with any of those people named that, by the way. But instead of telling everyone the same thing over and over again and telling them to do that, like codifying it and putting it in a library, kind of helps reduce the noise of conversations and kind of helps the team focus on actually the business problems and kind of like those important conversations. So I'm a big fan of like convention over configuration. One of my favorite developers in the .NET community, Jeremy Miller, who's part of the Martin project and now is doing Wolverine. He's a big person of like, he's a big advocate of like common sense conventions and code. So if anyone's interested in seeing his projects, Martin and Wolverine are kind of doing pretty well right now. So go check those out. Those are really cool. So
yeah, there's coding is an art, right? Oh, my friend Mark says he's trying to validate stuff because none existed. See what I'm talking about? Mark is the guy who plays lead guitar in the opening song.
Oh yeah, and, that's very cool. It was a very rockin' intro, by the way. I was just like jealous because I've always wanted to like learn how to play drums and stuff, but I've never found the time.
Yeah, I corralled my friends for that, and Mark lives here in San Diego. My friend who plays drums lives a little bit north, about 30 minutes or so. The bass player is from Germany, actually. He works with Alan, who speaks at CSharpCorner conferences, and so yeah, I wanted to kind of make it a geek band. I wrote the song actually right after I got out of the hospital, so I wasn't in the best mood, anyway, and so I tried, because of that, I tried to make it kind of simple ACD-ish kind of song, and so we could get it recorded before the first episodes. And it's fun because I've been playing with Carl Franklin since the 90s, We're very artistic. I think, and a lot of people, at my level, Carl Franklin, are very artistic, right? And that, I think makes us better. And that's why, I've said this a bunch of times, but I've spoken in India 4 times now, in front of the hugest crowds I've ever spoken in front of, except for Microsoft conferences. And, the best question I've ever gotten, for a couple of reasons, what I think was the second year I was there, and it was from this woman. So first off, a woman got up to ask me a question, which doesn't happen much in India, right? They're very shy. Indian people tend to be shy. I mean, not Simon, but other people, and and so for her to get up and ask a question, I thought was very brave of her in front of a sea of men, right? And she had a prepared list of questions, which I thought was kind of cool. But she asked me one of the best questions ever. And she goes, "Dave, you're a well-known software engineer. You play guitar. You're award-winning photographer, and whatever else." And she goes, "How do you do all that?" And I go, "Well, first off, it's always time management, right? It's like I always practice on the weekends guitar, right? And I have my time blocks where I do things. That's one thing, but the reason I do practice every week and I continue to make artwork and things like that is because I believe all those things feed the other, right? I think all those creative outlets and my technical outlet feed the other, right? And so I do a lot of those creative things to keep my creative juices going, because that's what you need to do if you're going to be like an architect and stuff like that in this world, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's really good advice. Like, like I do find, like, especially in my current role as a developer advocate, it's like I do need other things to kind of like feed my curiosity about other technologies. So,
Right.
like I write a lot of C# blog posts, but recently I've been doing a lot of TypeScript stuff. Also play some video games, take the dogs for a walk. Like you need kind of that balance.
Yeah, because I've done this in my career, and I've seen other people do it, where we just spend too much time on our career, because this career isn't an easy one, right?
No.
We have to constantly learn, we have to constantly be changing, and so and that's actually why at the end of my show, I mean, at the end of every interview I do with guests like you, is I ask them, "What do you do for fun?" Right? I'm not going to ask you that because you've already done that. I do have a different question I'm going to ask you don't know about, but that's why the last question I always ask is something not about coding, right? Because I kind of want to promote the idea that, we're just not coders, right? We do other things, and doing those other things makes you a better coder. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm actually seeing in the chat that a lot of people are mentioning their favorite C# 11 feature.
Yeah. I wasn't looking.
Yeah. So Anoop says file access modifier. Do you remember that one? So that one's really cool. I like that one. I can see that being really useful in unit tests, where you need to create kind of like objects just to kind of get your test to pass, but you don't want it to kind of pollute your code completion thing. So Anoop, thank you for that one. That's a really good one. Global using, those are pretty cool. Really,
I do like that.
Yeah,
I'm getting used to that now. Yeah, I do like that.
I like the fact that you can generate those too from other libraries. So like if someone adds your assembly, you can kind of like fit those in. Data science. I'm not sure if that's their real name.
I don't think so. What is your real name, data science? But
you don't have to tell us. If the FBI is looking for you,
you're in witness protection program.
But list and slice pattern, that one's actually pretty amazing. Actually, I think I wrote a blog post about that somewhere, but it's kind of nice that you can kind of do patterns on lists to see if a list matches that. So that's really cool. And Anoop comes in with my favorite feature, especially when you mix it with Rider and its ability
Mhm.
to inject languages into strings,
Yeah.
raw string literals. You can do things like describe a JSON object right in your C# file, or get SQL syntax highlighting.
Mhm.
In Rider, if you make a string a SQL statement, you can actually connect it to a database, and you can test that SQL statement with code completion in your raw string literal. So
Hmm.
for whoever wins the license today, try that out, because I think that'll kind of like blow people's minds.
Yeah.
It's always like a fun demo that I do
Yeah.
for people.
And Slice is something I'm still trying to learn more about, because I'm trying to take the performance increases that Slice gives you, but roll it into a library so you don't have to write all that code. Because doing slicing stuff is quite a bit. It's more code than we're used to, and so I'm trying to find those patterns and put it into Spargin, and then you just call a method and it does it for you, right?
Yeah. You know what's interesting that I'd love to see kind of in the data collections namespace in C#, that I know there's like 1,000 NuGet libraries out there that do this, but like I still would like a data collection in .NET that's a paged list.
Yeah, that'd be nice, huh?
Yeah, my coworker and I, Paul, we're doing a lot of TypeScript stuff recently, and we're building a static site, and we needed to from our current item know if there was a previous item,
Mm-hmm.
and if there's a next item, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably code that a lot of people end up writing multiple times if they're
Yeah.
working with data sets. So having a first-class page list collection in .NET would be pretty sweet. So,
Are you talking like maybe a page list that only gets the data when it's requested, or it's just hanging out in cache kind of?
well, I guess it could work both ways, right? I
Yeah.
guess the issue of knowing a page list is like you would need to know the entire collection in memory, because
Mm,
you'd have to know the total count and do all
yeah.
those kind of things to have the right amount of metadata that you need to
Yeah.
answer those questions. So I'm not sure you could do it on an enumerable, but maybe you could.
Well, I'm writing it down right now because next week I'm having my quarterly coffee chat with Mads Torgerson, and so
Yeah.
I'll bring it up to him and see if they're talking about anything like that.
Yeah. It'd be
Yeah.
cool. It'd be cool if you could bring it up, but
Yeah, I'll bring it
I
up. It's on my list. I wrote it down.
know those libraries exist on NuGet.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine way too. Loka says, I like the new code warnings in C#11. Can you explain which code warnings? Are you talking
Yeah.
about
Are you talking
analyzers?
about? Yeah. Are you talking about the analyzers? Yeah, that's what I
Mhm.
was going to ask. Yeah.
Yeah.
The analyzers are getting better. There's a rough change between style cop and moving to what they're doing now, and so I think that's still going on. But yeah, the analyzers still get better, especially the iDisposable analyzer. I don't know why that's not automatically in .NET. Tell you the truth, right?
Yeah.
And I've had a long conversation with Mads about this, about iDisposable stuff, and no one can seem to do it right, and all this stuff. And so why that analyzer isn't automatically in every .NET project is beyond me. But yeah.
Well, it's funny you mentioned disposables. What do you think about the like scope blocked using statements? Do you like the old fashioned style where you had to like put the curly braces in the
Oh
right
yeah.
place to define the scope, or do you like the using var statement where as soon as the scope block ends, it just calls the dispose method immediately?
Yeah.
Like which do you prefer?
I even changed Spargin to the new way, and I changed it all back. So that answers your question, right? And the reason I did that is, and maybe because I've been using .NET, I've been using .NET when I was in beta, right? I was in production with beta 1 of .NET, right?
Mhm.
With a company from Chicago. And so if you want to call me old school, whatever, but for me, seeing that block makes it visually easier to spot and know exactly what's going on. And especially since, one of the things I do a lot these days is analyze code and fix it or make recommendations, stuff like that. I can see those blocks a lot easier than just the new way of doing it. So I've switched back to doing it the old way. For me, it's readability, right?
Gotcha. Yeah,
I have benchmarked it. It's the same speed, right? So
yeah,
I did benchmark it, but so whatever your preference is, but
yeah, preference is one of those things of like, I never, for me personally, get hung up on what a team wants to do. So it's like, it's one of those things. I know it's you could change it, and then the next PR coming in is going to change it to their style.
Yeah,
I know a lot of folks are focusing on editor config stuff to kind of keep a team together. I actually did write a blog post about editor config. It should be coming out on the JetBrains blog soon. So if folks want to subscribe to the JetBrains blog, please do so. You'll get, I think I wrote, I'm up to 12 blog posts so far this year on JetBrains. They're not all published yet. So again, you'll have to subscribe, but there's a lot of content coming out there. Zaw says, when will JetBrains support C#11? We already do now.
Yeah.
So the person who wins this license will have C#11 support. In Rider, obviously Visual Studio 2022 already has C#11 support. So ReSharper will support C#11 too if you install ReSharper. So you have that now.
Yeah, and my friend says he doesn't use a scope block on usings, but he likes it for namespaces. See, I'm the opposite now. I like it on usings, but I'm getting used to the leaving it off for namespaces. Yeah,
it is fascinating how C#. I wrote someone. This was not the reason I left Twitter, but someone on Twitter found a blog post of mine where they said, they were with me until I used some new C# coding constructs, and then they were like, "You've overcomplicated it."
Really? Come on.
But
you stopped following me because of that?
No. They were just kidding.
Okay.
The thing about social media, sometimes you just have to realize like people are making friendly jokes at each other, and I can take
having a bad day.
Yeah, I can definitely take a good joke here and there. So But no, it is fascinating how C# is like, if you had to jump in a time machine and go from C#1 to C#11.
Wow, that would be mind blowing.
Yeah, you wouldn't even know it, right?
I barely remember one really at this point, right?
Well, one didn't even have generics, right?
How
do we live without generics, right?
I know. Actually, I was, yesterday my boss asked me to make a list of all the important to-dos I've been injecting into their code about things we need to go back and look at. And one of those things, this is the first time I found this in, probably since generics came out, really, is they're still using array list. And three places they're using array lists, and I'm going, we got to change that.
I can only imagine the boxing and unboxing. Well, I guess generics probably do that. If you were to look at like the IL or
generics doesn't do boxing. That's why it's faster than array lists and stuff. It doesn't do boxing. Right?
Oh, okay.
So that's why when I was first teaching this at the university, my tests were showing like 200% increase because of that, right? And we should do that. We should have a show where we come, like maybe we should do that when the next when 8 comes out. We should, .NET 8 comes out. We should do a retrospective and compare that to 1.
Oh my, yeah, I wonder, like, I'm guilty of using the dynamic keyword when my reflection foo or something just kind of fails me, like where I can't, like, I know the object I'll be getting has this field or this method or property, but I just don't want to go through the hurdles. So I'll just slap a dynamic on it.
Yeah.
Especially these days when I'm mostly writing demo code to kind of prove other points rather than like, build performant production code or anything like that. But
and I know
yeah,
this wasn't, I know this wasn't a feature of the last version, but I really liked it when they added named tuples.
oh, name tuples. I
Right.
like that feature too.
When they first came out, I didn't really like them because I don't like things that aren't named, right?
Mm-hmm.
And are a little bit harder to use, right? And so when they came out with the named tuples, I was going, oh yes, now I can finally use them because I know what the freaking thing is. It's not just some arbitrary name, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I do like that.
Well, it's funny. When we were talking before the show, we were talking about Star Trek and Picard and
Yeah.
the future. Like,
Yeah.
in your opinion, if you were to like jump into the future for like C#16, like what do you think? What do you think would like really spice things up or really add value in C# as a language?
Well, I don't know about me, but I think, and I know Microsoft has been working on this lately, but just to make it easier entry point, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the complaints a lot of people have, new people have about .NET is the barrier of entry point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're already working on that. So I hope that gets better. But really, by 16, I think I'll kind of go back a little bit to what I kind of predicted software was going to be over 20 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I was thinking about this, right? And at this point, in 2023, I thought that, and we're kind of doing this, but not the way I envision it. But, I thought the programming would be just more like plug and play, right? And
Mm-hmm.
more kind of like Power Apps, right? Where you kind
Yep.
of plug and play it, right? And I think that's where Power Apps is going to gain more momentum because of that, right? And because of all the struggles I've seen people do, especially in the beginning days of learning programming, right? I taught at the university for 18 years. I ran a user group for 20 years, and I see these struggles. And some of the languages, like some people have showed me they've written for children or kids, is
Mm-hmm.
kind of the way I think that our programming should be now, right? It's more plug and play, not a lot of actual coding unless you're writing those modules or whatever they're called, right? And
Yeah.
how about you?
It's funny you mentioned that, like, we at JetBrains are working a lot on Unity and Unreal, like
Mm-hmm.
as programming, like programming ecosystems. But a lot of those game engines are starting to adopt codeless script editors, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, or they call them like node editors. So you'll drop a box in that maybe has some slides or maybe some like input elements, and then you can kind of connect it to the next one. The language you're probably talking about in terms of like kids using it is probably Scratch. That's the most
Might
popular
have been,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
But
it's yeah.
okay. You
Go
said
ahead.
something about Unity. I've said this on the show multiple times, but I am so impressed with my acupuncturist 11-year-old kid because he's been programming for years now. He's
Yeah.
11, right? I think he started when he was 8.
Oh
And
wow.
now he's learning Unity. And she told me that. And I go, I don't even want to learn Unity, right? And he's 11. He wants to learn Unity. I'm going,
What's amazing? Like I've dabbled in Unity and stuff like that. It's like Unity is built on .NET.
mm-hmm,
I think it was using Mono. I know the Unity team is looking to move to like .NET, the latest versions of .NET. But the amazing thing about Unity is like the game engine itself.
mm-hmm,
Uh, when I look at Unity developers, I don't necessarily think of them as .NET developers. And that's not like a bad thing. I'm not saying they're not developers. They clearly are developers. But when you look at the C# used in the context of Unity, the idioms and the way people write their code, which they call scripts, they call C# scripts, not, code.
mm-hmm.
So the idioms fit closer to like C++, like
Mhm.
in game engines. And they don't use things like properties. Mostly fields are used. Rider works really great with Unity. So if you want to get into Unity development, maybe Dave, you could win this license. I'm just saying. But yeah,
I
like,
don't need a license. I can just call up JetBrains and they'll give me one. So,
but yeah, like Unity development's really fun. One of the fun things too in the Unity space that you can get into is like shaders.
yeah.
So shaders work on the GPU, and you basically give it instructions like when you get a pixel in, you tell what that pixel should output as. And you can do some amazing things like turn something metallic or turn something bumpy or add a glow. And all of this stuff happens on the GPU. So it's really fast and performant. So Unity as a programming space and a learning space is really fun. And I think for me, I think every developer thought they would get into programming because they thought they would make video games, right?
Mhm.
And with game engines like Unreal and Unity and even Godot now, which is like really popular, um, more than ever, you can actually do some game programming and build a game from scratch, which is really awesome. So,
Yeah.
yeah, folks should really do that. Simon says adding physics to objects. Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
these game engines already have physics engines, so you don't have to be, Albert Einstein to
Yeah.
make a ball drop out of the sky. So,
Yeah. Well, here's a couple of things I kind of wish Microsoft would work on more
Mhm,
because I feel it's pretty lacking in .NET. And one is a workflow.
mhm,
We did have a workflow engine briefly, but we really don't have one anymore, right? And so that's one thing that's kind of, I think, made our lives a little harder, is not having kind of a workflow engine like that. You can buy third-party, products, and I've used them, for doing workflow, but .NET doesn't have it inside, right, anymore since they dropped it. And so workflow is something I wish they really would do better. Um, and you were talking about the GPU, and so
mhm.
I still feel that .NET doesn't use the GPU enough. Maybe it does. I just don't feel it's doing that. And I kind of wish, and I was thinking about .NET 1, but I think there needs to be a new evolution to asynchronous programming, right? Because
Yeah.
I know we have asynchronous, which is hell of a lot better than we were doing it before, right? But I think it needs to get better, right? And easier, and uh, and easier. Not only that, but easier for developers to understand, because so many times, they're having performance problems. They said, well, we'll just slap in some async or multi-threading and it'll fix everything. And almost every time it gets worse, right?
Yeah.
Because they really don't understand what they're doing. And if you don't really understand the multi-threaded world, you're going to shoot yourself or your project in the foot for a while. And I've seen major delays of projects because of this, like 6 months I saw once,
Yeah.
because they injected a bunch of async code and they couldn't figure out why it was worse. And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
so
Well, I was going to
I
say to the credit of the .NET team, like when async await first came out, there was this synchronization context that was
mhm,
necessary for full framework.
right.
So I think that's where a lot of people started putting themselves into like deadlock situations, right? I will say to what you were saying earlier about analyzers, I think analysis of async await constructs and potentials for deadlock tooling has
Mhm.
gotten a lot better
It has.
at
Yes.
warning people like, hey, you might have all these locks all over the place
Mhm.
and you're using them in methods that could potentially lead to a deadlock. You may want to rethink how you're
Mhm.
doing this. So, but to your point, async await, the thing that I would like, and I don't know if it's possible, but I always forget to pass in a cancellation
Oh, yeah, me
token,
too.
right?
Yeah.
So it'd be nice if there was some way that a cancellation token could propagate from like a scope down that async await call tree, right? So for me, that's what I would want. But I also know maybe I could see people wanting to pass in their own token at a different time. Like you just don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, cancellation tokens, I always forget them.
Yeah, I always usually forget them too, And actually, in the last couple of weeks, I've found, and I notified the, developer at work about this Thursday, is I found 3 deadlocks in their code, and so yeah, it's an issue, and it can cause issues, that are usually hard to identify and fix, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So what? So
yeah. Go ahead.
So what do you think is going to be the future in .NET in C# 16?
Well, it's funny. Like I work at JetBrains, and we're the creators of Kotlin, which is like a JVM compatible language.
Hmm.
And I see a lot of the future of C# in Kotlin in a weird way.
Hmm.
One thing I would love C# to do, and I know we've talked about this a lot, or I've seen the discussions happening on GitHub on the .NET repo, but extension everything. I know you're a big fan of extension methods, but I would
Hmm.
love things like extension properties.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah.
like because there's times where you want to enhance an object with the potential metadata,
Hmm.
and an extension property makes a lot of sense in
Yeah,
those use
it does.
cases.
It
But
does.
one of the problems is though, like when you have an extension property, where does the value live, right? So if you were to pass that object around and the receiver doesn't have access to those extension properties, like where do you put that value while the object is in a space where someone's not accessing that property? So
Yeah.
I understand the technical limitations, but it doesn't change the fact that I want that kind of stuff. The other thing I'd really love, and I know this has been a big topic of like contention for a long time, but some kind of duck typing would be really cool.
What is that?
So duck typing.
What's that?
So let's say you have a bunch of objects and they all just so happen to have a name property, right?
Hmm.
So you create a method that says print out the name,
Hmm.
but none of these objects actually have any commonality, but they just so happen to have a name property.
Hmm.
So you should still be allowed to pass those things in because
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
kind of implement the same contract.
Right.
Um, and then now you have a method that can do things with those objects, even though they're in a sense don't have anything in common with
Yeah.
each other, right?
So you're talking about kind of like not using an interface or something like that, just automatically do it,
Yeah.
be able to send that into a property parameter.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
if you were to go to the .NET GitHub repo, you could look for I think people are calling them shapes in .NET, but
Mm.
a lot of dynamic languages, even TypeScript, not about types, but so much as like contracts being fulfilled.
Hmm.
So when you declare interfaces or classes or types, that's really design time typing. And when you get to runtime with JavaScript, typically aren't any types. It's
Hmm.
just
Right.
you just know that these things are going to have these fields or these methods and
Right.
all that kind
Right.
of stuff. So for me,
And
that would be really cool.
and Simon, since it's getting close to the end, can you put up the hashtag to make a comment and win uh, the software from JetBrains? So everybody, if you're late, we're going to give away some JetBrains software at the end in just a few minutes, and so make sure you make a comment, a good one, about our guest with that hashtag, and you can win a copy of what's it called? It's
Ultimate. Yeah.
ultimate, right?
Yeah. So Ultimate includes ReSharper for Visual Studio 2022, but it also includes a license for JetBrains Rider, which is getting a lot of buzz in the .NET space. And I personally love it, and not just as a JetBrains shill, as an actual .NET dev. And then you get our profiling tools like .memory, .trace, and then .peek, which is a disassembler. Or so like, if you've ever wondered how a NuGet package works and for some reason that code isn't available on GitHub, you can always kind of peek inside that assembly. David, you're a contractor, so you probably
we're not doing it right now, Simon. It'll be after he's off the show.
Yeah.
I didn't know if he's trying to. Okay, there we go.
But you said you're a contractor, right? So you see a lot of code bases. I'm sure you've seen the old-timey infamous lib folder where all of your non-NuGet dependencies live. Maybe those companies that provided those dependencies have gone away, but you still need to understand what's happening in that code.
Right.
.peek, ReSharper, Rider, they can all kind of disassemble that code, and you can kind of see inside of it. So for me personally, that's how I learned a lot of my .NET knowledge, just looking at other people's code. And I think those tools are crucial. So.
Yeah, ever since those tools started coming out, I started looking at how like Microsoft was doing things before they went open source, and things like that. Now you can see pretty much everything, right? But before, that's what we used to understand what was happening in the framework, right? Was to use one of those tools like that, right?
Yeah. I also still think it's important because sometimes code moves really fast. Oh, Mahesh saying I should come to India. Hey, I might come to India. But no, it's really important still today, even though a lot of stuff is open source. You might pull a dependency down and you're on a particular version, but you go to GitHub and you might accidentally be looking at the current version of the code rather than the code that's in your project.
Yeah.
So for me, I've always first disassembled the code that's actually in my project to make sure that I understand the behavior before I go to something like GitHub and try to find out.
Yeah, that's I've for weeks now I've been trying to. Right now my current branch is stuck because I can't get it to build on the Linux box they build on, and it's because of a dependency that I cannot figure out where it's coming from. I mean, I have been searching, every file on the system. Trying to figure out where the heck is this one Microsoft package is coming from, and I cannot figure it out. And for some reason, it builds fine, if I do it through Visual Studio, but for whatever they're using on the Linux box, I keep getting this error, and me and my boss can't figure it out at this point. Yeah. And so,
what I think it might be? I'm going to give you a hint. So I've gotten really good at psychic debugging. So people describe to me what their problem is, and I can guess it. So you're probably running into an instance where you have a dependency that's depending on a Windows DLL, right? And now that you're in a Linux environment, that DLL is not available.
Right.
So you're probably p-invoking into something on Windows, and that's why it works there.
And we haven't been able to figure that out yet. So it's been driving me crazy the last couple of weeks, and because I've never run into an issue this bad. I know it's on Linux, and I really don't know anything about Linux, and so I'm not a lot of help there. But my boss is the Linux guy, so. I'm just clueless when it comes to, especially like I said, on the Linux box and all the stuff they have going to get that stuff working. So
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say we're close on time, so there's two things I wanted to ask you real quick before I let you go, and then we have to do the giveaway and everything. But
yeah, sure.
Before I forget, I definitely want to have you back on sooner than later, right? I don't want to wait over a year for next time, because I really enjoy talking to you. And so this leads me into my next question. When are you coming back to Twitter?
Oh, when am I coming back?
Because I really miss your tweets, man.
I know. I miss the .NET community on Twitter. But it's just something is weird with .NET, or something's weird with Twitter.
Oh, I know. I know.
Like today, I guess they canceled. If you're watching this in the future, this is the day where two-factor auth has been disabled unless you're paying a monthly subscription.
What?
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
Yeah.
The algorithm was changed, so you always get certain tweets that maybe you're not subscribed to.
Or how about the thing that came out this week where they wrote code to make sure everybody sees Elon's tweets? I mean, really? Come on, Elon. I mean, attention that bad? Come on.
So for me, Twitter has always been a way to connect to the .NET
Yeah.
community and to talk to individuals, and that's kind of what I've enjoyed. I am on Mastodon, so if
Yeah.
folks want to head over there, we can talk and chat. I do have office hours, so if folks want to do office hours, I'm more than willing to sit in a Google Meet with a bunch of folks and talk. So, yeah, and for me, it's just talking to people and seeing what they're excited about, and that's why I blog too. It's for me, it's just getting knowledge and information out there so people can learn. And funny enough, if you ever spend long enough on a problem, it might take you a month to find a solution, but as soon as you blog your solution, someone will tell you how wrong it is and give you a better solution. So
I know.
I think that's the number one reason to blog
Yeah,
for
yeah.
anybody. So
Yeah, I fixed stuff in Spargin because someone said, "Hey, wait a minute, shouldn't you be doing it this way?" And I go, "Oh, yeah, okay."
Yeah, it's like, we're all learning no matter what, our year's experience. I tell this a lot to folks who I'm like mentoring,
Mhm.
who are trying to get into the tech industry. It's like, they typically hear, "Oh, you have this much years experience. I'm never going to catch up." But the nice thing about the tech industry is like every 5 years, it basically resets itself
It
anyways.
does. Yep, I feel the
So
same way.
yeah,
Yeah.
so like most of us have really 5 years of technical experience.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas like your problem solving and soft skills and being a nice person and helping people, those are the things that really keep you on a team. So
Right,
like
right.
just be reliable, dependable, nice to people on your team and work together to solve problems. And I think that's what keeps people in tech. So
Yeah,
um,
I don't say this a lot because I don't know how people take it, but now I'll say it to thousands, I guess. But you know, I have forgotten more than I know.
yeah, that's
Right?
true.
I mean, I've been doing this long, longer than you've been doing it, and I've forgotten more than I know. If I think back to, the '90s and stuff, like I was thinking back to try to figure out if I could still envision writing the first program that, one of the first programs I wrote that was picked up by PC Magazine, and I can't remember any of it, right? And I've lost the source code to it, and because I kind of wanted to see how bad I was back then, right?
Have you ever read something that you wrote and then realized like, oh, that guy was way smarter than this guy?
This guy. No, sometimes I do that. I write the article going, dang, man, that guy is
Yeah.
really good. Who is
Yeah,
he?
that guy, where did he go? Yeah, that happens to me all the time. That's the funny thing about writing as many blog posts as I do. Typically, by the time they're published, it's new to me too. So I'm like,
Mhm.
I go read it and I'm like, oh wow, I had something good to say here, or oh, I could have done this a little better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
So
so yeah,
I gotta let you go, but I did have one more question, but I will have to wait that till next time. But I thought we'd give away the dot ultimate now while you're still here before I
yeah,
let you
sure.
go. So are you ready, Simon? You ready to pull the trigger? And you're not going to pick CSharpCorner or you, right? Or Mahesh. Okay, let's do it. I bet you it's going to be.
Oh, ah, oh,
See, I
oh,
told. Oh, data science with Deepa. Okay, you won.
congratulations, Deepa.
Yeah, so let me write your name down. So contact me and or contact Simon. I need your email address so I can send you the certificate. I have it with me, so I can send it to you today. And thanks to you and JetBrains for providing that to us. And also, since you've won, I want to report how you like this stuff. Okay, maybe we'll have you on the show, and you can say how what you're up to and how you like the products from JetBrains.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me or any JetBrains advocates as well if you have any
Yeah,
questions or issues, and we're happy to help people. So
great.
yeah.
Well, I should let you go because it's late in India, and I want to let Simon go to bed. What time is it there, Simon? 12:30. Yeah, so 12:30 p.m. So Luckily, he's young. There's no way I could stay up that late. I'm too old to do that nowadays. It's hard for me to go to concerts now. I mean, yeah, it's just, it's oh wait. Well, I did want to talk about your 3D printing because I want to get into that. So maybe we'll say that we'll talk about that a little bit more next time. I've been meaning to tweet at Scott Hanselman to see if he still likes that expensive printer he got from Europe. Because I'm thinking about doing that now that I have a job. I want to get a 3D printer. And but anyway, thank you so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed catching up with you. I bookmarked your blog, so I'm going to be checking it out now, but I still want you back on Twitter. That's
all right. We'll see. We'll see.
Someday. No pressure. But right. I was thinking this morning, I go, you did more tweets than anybody else on my feed. So, I kind of miss that, Right. I'm being selfish.
Well, thank you. I'm
being
really
selfish
humbled
now.
Yeah. Well, thank you, folks. It was really fun. Thank you, chat. Thank you for your comments. I always like a lively chat. So
yeah, me too.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Well, that was a great interview as usual. I'm really glad I was able to catch up with Khalid and find out what he's doing, and have our friendly banter back and forth. I do really enjoy him on the show because he does ask me questions and we kind of get things going. And you did have questions, you did have comments today, so that was great. There's more people attending today, probably because of him. And so I hope you'll be back here for the next show, which I'll talk about here in a second. So, all right. So I have a Twitter poll going on right now. You can go vote. I think there's close to 100 votes on this yet. So if you're looping through a reference with reference objects of an immutable list, which one of these 4 methods is the fastest way of doing that? And there's only like 2 days left, so I'll give you a hint. The fastest way is not the most votes here. So there's your hint. So I hope you go vote on my latest Twitter poll because those polls usually make it into one of my books or something like that. All right. Next week is the year mark of this horrible war in the Ukraine. And so please take a moment out this week and think about our friends there and fellow programmers who I all know I've been there and spoken in front of. So we can get this over with and get the repair of their country back. It just saddens me to no end. This is in 2023. We're dealing with stuff like this, and so if you can support them, whether money, prayers, physically, please go support them because we need to stop this everywhere, if you ask me, but especially in the Ukraine. All right. As every week, please help me help the kids from India by going to thevoiceofslum.org or going to that GoFundMe page. There's also a blog post on my website on ways to help. And so you all know these are pictures from when I visited the Voice of Slum last October. And they just always, those Chandy and Dave, who started this wonderful, wonderful organization, just continue to impress me and all the hard work they do for these kids from the slums in India. And there they are right there at the conference. And they're inspirations to me. And so I'm going to always talk about them because I do support them. Actually, this weekend, I'm going to be sending them some money from the books you've bought of mine. So thank you very much to everybody who's bought my old code performance book. All that money will be going to the Voice of Slum this weekend. So I do that. Let's help the kids, right? We can help. We have the ability to help. We just got to do it. Oh, we already did the giveaway. Okay. All right. Thanks for watching. So next month on March 4th will be Brady Gaster. I'm really looking forward to having him on the show for the second time, Simon. Second time? Yes. And so I'm really looking forward to catching up with him again. So I hope he join me. Got a couple weeks off, and then we'll be back on March 4th. All right. Please be safe. Listen to your medical professionals about COVID or whatever else is going on in your area. And please go donate blood at your local blood bank. I'll be doing that tomorrow. I just got a notification while I was setting up for the show. I did it 4 weeks ago, and so I'll be going down there tomorrow. Luckily, it's only a few blocks from where I live, and I reward myself after every donation with sushi because it's right next door, my favorite sushi place. And so please go donate because they're in a big shortage. All the blood banks are in a big shortage right now because of everything going on in the world. And always, please, always email me your suggestions, comments. Who do you want to have on the show? Things you want me to do on the show. This is your show, and it will only get better if you give me some feedback. So make sure you do that before March 4th. And with that, I'll see you all next month.